All right, I'll call the meeting to order. All three commissioners are present. It was properly posted on August 27th. And our prayer this morning will be led by our new beat reporter from the Oklahoman, who is a veteran journalist, Richard Mize. Yes.
And I'm also a pastor of Trinity Presbyterian Church here in Oklahoma City, so that makes this not sound quite so odd. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for freedom. We ask for wisdom and courage for these servants of the people as they do the business of the people for the people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 21?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move our claims.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any change to the blanket? No, okay.
I'll move our blanket purchase orders.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Our consent docket, any individual consideration?
I'll move our consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Then, as you know, we've had a reason to reapproach this contract with TEEM for handling the court services. We have Mr. Steele here. Are there any questions? I know there was a lengthy discussion at Budget Board yesterday, so I apologize. I had to be at another meeting.
This is to amend the contract that we originally signed about 2 months ago, a month ago. Okay.
This is for 6 months. Is there a PO attached to this one? And encumbered funds?
No, we cannot encumber the funds until we make a decision at Budget Board on Thursday in regards to moving those funds over to the appropriate account. That was what was to be discussed yesterday. So once we are able, if we are able to approve a 6-month contract, that will end in December 31st of this year. That will allow for us to encumber the full contract. And then at Budget Board, if the board will approve for us to be able to move those monies that are available in that court services account out of the line item for salaries and benefits into M&O, then we'll be able to do a requisition PO and be able to pay TEAM as well as the detention center for their invoices and be able to encumber the funds for those 3 MOUs that are outstanding and do not have POs for.
And that includes the DA's office. So detention center, TEAM, DA, correct?
Correct. The DA, just for clarification, there are 3, possibly 4, but it doesn't affect it with Shine, accounts that are set up, funds that are set up for court services. And so there is a special revenue fund. And so we had planned on paying the DA's portion out of that one because there's enough funds there to do a requisition and a PO for. And then the fund that we're talking about on Thursday is where we need to move the monies in order to pay the 6 months, should this get approved today, and the detention center.
So we can move this pending approval by Budget Board tomorrow.
Correct.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, pending encumbrance of funds.
Pending an encumbrance of funds. Okay.
That'll be the way that it has to happen.
Okay.
And my concern still stands with this contract. It's still more expensive than what we were thinking that we were originally going to do. We still have the jail that we have to look at. We still have those issues. Now, I'd also believe that we have a moral obligation to give TEAM money for the work that they've done. We don't have a contractual one because there was never a purchase order or an encumbrance of funds, which in the contract says that those things have to be done in order for the contract to be valid. But again, we should pay for the work that they have performed.
And my plan was, if the budget board yesterday would have approved the transfer of the funds in order to pay these MOUs, and I would have presented a requisition for you to accept on the horseshoe today. But since we're continuing to have discussions, then we can do that pending.
So assuming that we, at budget board, they pass something, are we gonna have a special, BOCC on the backside, like on a Friday?
Well, we shouldn't because
shouldn't
we
if
would
we
do
approve
it
this.
pending
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, there you go. Thank
I
you.
mean, we had this order
You're right.
correct
You're
if it hadn't stalled out yesterday. And
You're right.
my prediction is we're going to meet tomorrow and do exactly what the same thing that was offered before the budget board yesterday. But we're just going to spend time having another meeting. But I think, again, services were rendered, but we also said that we were going to operate from the fund that was already approved in BET with the budget that was proposed and passed in May. So on the horseshoe, at least verbally, it was spoken to that we were going to operate out of those funds. So in my mind, that absolutely, at least that number, now maybe if the number increased, there could be a dispute, but at least the 1.3 million was intently encumbered from the verbal commitment from this vote on the horseshoe, in my opinion.
So 1.385 is the contract now.
Yeah.
Previously, it was 1.1 is what we had budgeted, correct?
Or whichever the number, but
What was
whatever.
it? 1.184. So there's, the 25% increase, the inflection.
I also think that, the position that went to the district attorney is essentially new, and that's a hickey in the sense that it's duplicated effort, but that was to satisfy the district attorney's request. And the positions over at the jail trust, we could have maybe had over there with FTEs that weren't fulfilled. I mean, the goal is to reduce the jail population, and having them there, I believe even was your belief, was the preferential
Oh,
place to go.
Absolutely.
That makes so much sense. They're just right there. I know the district attorney had disagreed about that, but it kept those employees on county benefits. It would have had them right there. But the jail trust wanted additional funding for those, what they considered to be new positions, even though they have FTEs that aren't currently occupied. I thought they could have absorbed it, but it was about trying to get this deal done. And so there's some uptick in cost right there. I mean, that was how we got the thing through. There's also a minute cost, but I don't know that it was true that we just took the entire budget and just put over there. I think there were some things that we pay for out of other budgets that aren't reflected in there, one of which is janitorial services that comes out of facilities budget. Again, I'm not saying it accounts for the whole thing, but I don't know that we took apples to apples when we looked at all real costs. And that isn't to say we aren't still striving for a reduction in cost, and I know that there's already an increased service clientele that they're helping. And as for the shine component, it's going exceedingly well and has really exceeded my expectation, which was high to begin with. So I appreciate that. And then I think now we've got everybody at the jail trust certified with OLEDs under the jail trust OLEDs. And hopefully soon that will show a reflection of productivity, which has nothing to do with TEEM, but in terms of how we split this thing apart. I just think it's going to take some time for all this to shake out.
To properly answer that question, the original contract amount was $1,350,914.94. This is an amended contract. So for 6 months in the amount that's listed of $675,457.47. After we can further discuss in BET and look at their budget and have further discussions, then we can do a second amended in order to fulfill the full
finish out the
contract.
year.
Yeah, and that was how I was advised by Lisa
Yeah,
to handle the contract.
and I think
moving
that's
forward.
probably a great idea, getting this to BET, because I think what you'll find is the FTEs were funded if the program still existed, those FTEs we funded at the 1.1 level. Even though that those jobs moved to a different tower, say down the street, DA's office, wherever, that money that we've allotted for that should have followed those individuals. So we're not adding, we've added an increased cost by not only taking that money and those FTEs, but actually increased a product over here from TEEM to 1.385. So we've actually increased costs not only by the 25%, but those FTEs as well. Correct? I mean, it's a simple budget thing. So we took the money, we
No, because
transferred it over.
we took the money from this account
Yes, and
for
transferred it over
for those positions.
and transferred it over to those individual spots,
Mhm.
What will need to
which
be
was
discussed.
also into the 1.385 with TEAM.
So what will need to be discussed and what we plan on discussing, and Bridget Biffle, our public defender, has also been very instrumental in having further conversations regarding the budget, is there are some additional costs that help support TEAM. And I would invite Chris or Jamie to come up and speak to that in order to make sure that this is a successful program, that they have the resources needed in order to follow best practices. And so those other support services, such as incentives, having the proper software to do reporting, things like that will continue to be discussed, especially at BET, to see, if there's areas that we can revise to the budget, or if this is truly what they need in order to succeed.
Right. So, and that was some of the questions to you yesterday, Mr. Speaker, if you'd like to come up and answer. You were talking about a certification and chasing this national certification just to show that we're doing best practices. What does that national certification cost? Because no certification comes for free. And then what does it get us? I compared it to the ACA accreditation, and what the ACA accreditation does for us in the court of law is it saves us millions and millions of dollars. So what does this accreditation save us or get us? And then how much does it cost us?
So the accreditation on the cost, Jamie, you want to come talk about the cost? Because we have our top 2 supervisors who are already certified as a best practice national certification provider. And then in going through that training and obtaining that individual certification, they are overseeing the components of our program to ensure that we are moving and achieve the best practices, national best practices certification. I can just tell you from a practical standpoint, what that gets us is an approach to public safety that is based on evidence and data. I mean, we're making sure that when we are determining who should be out on a conditional bond, that we're basing that not on emotion or intuition, but on actual facts and a standardized process. And then once those individuals are out, we're making sure that they have the appropriate services and that the appropriate services are in place. They're connected to the appropriate services to ensure proper accountability and progress for that individual. So this gives us the opportunity from a public safety, from a community safety standpoint, to make sure that we are proceeding according to research, science, and data-driven practices.
So, but you're currently doing that?
Yes.
So I will just add, so the certification process comes through the National Association for Pretrial Service Agencies, or NAPSA. There is individual certifications for people. So I am a certified pretrial release professional. That costs a grand total of $75. So it's not a lot of money. We haven't looked at the cost of full program certification yet, because we are not there yet, because, and this is things that we're talking about in the Court Services Advisory Board, kind of the last piece is that we need to implement a standardized pretrial risk assessment. And that's something that would need to be kind of agreed upon by the Court Services Advisory Board. And then, of course, the recommendation would be brought in front of you all to determine which assessment to be used and those sorts of things. So we haven't implemented that yet, but I believe they're talking about that in the meeting next week. And then just to highlight, I know it was said earlier, at the time of this transition, Um, Under 40 individuals on conditional bond release came over from court services to us. We currently are supervising 726 individuals on conditional bond release. That's not ORs, that's just the conditional bond that actually requires supervision. And then just so far this month, there has been 228 individuals released on a conditional bond. That's not an OR, that's only the numbers for a conditional bond. So the numbers have increased significantly as we've worked with the county to develop this kind of more streamlined process where the jail is ensuring everyone who needs to get screened, that information goes straight to the district attorney and the public defender. They're just telling us who to interview. We get that information to the attorney and they take it to the judge. But with everybody working together, that process is just so much more efficient. And so the judges already know, the district attorney has already reviewed this person. I have their feedback right here on this form. So more releases are happening.
So if I could also, just to tell you what we are doing and what we set this budget on in reference to best practice in accordance with this national certification to make sure that we are providing the best possible services to the county, you have to keep your caseload at a certain ratio. Like we planned for that, we budgeted for that. Again, I don't mean to rehash the whole conversation, but just knowing how many individuals that we would likely be providing direct conditional bond supervision for each month over the course of this 12 months, we set the budget to make sure that our caseload ratios were in line with best practices so that we could give each individual the proper attention. That's one thing that we're currently doing. Another thing, as an example that we mentioned yesterday, is for individuals. And Commissioner Davidson, you asked yesterday, I think there are of the 726 or so who are out on conditional bond, I think that we are supervising approximately 71 with an ankle monitor. You ask how many, had an ankle monitor. Another best practice would be, and again, we've talked about this and I don't mean to go too far, but by virtue of qualifying for a conditional bond, that in essence means the individual is indigent. They can't afford a private bond. And so if they can't afford a private bond, they're not likely going to be able to afford to pay for their ankle monitor. So a best practice would be that we cannot charge that individual for a requirement, a condition that they are required to fulfill that the court has placed on them. And so we put the $50,000 or so that used to be available to court services through the county's indigent fund into our budget, since we don't have access to that money. But we totally believe that we've accounted for all the costs that we would anticipate to be in accordance with best practices over the course of the 12 months. I hope I'm answering your questions and just giving you some practical examples of how we are moving toward the risk assessment. The standardized risk assessment may be the last piece of that to qualify us to be a actual obtain the national certification for the program itself. The people leading the program at TEEM have already achieved their certifications.
Are you comfortable with this today, approving 6 months and then continuing to have discussions to make sure that the rest of the year is under contract and we have an agreed upon amount?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I would just also say, Commissioner, like, please, I welcome the conversations, the going over our budget, our invoices with a fine tooth comb. We're not trying to hide anything. We want you all to know exactly what's being spent on what services and why. And we want you to feel good about it, and we welcome the continued discussions. We would also very much like to get paid.
Thank you.
So.
I understand.
So on the reporting aspect of it, what's the board that you sit on? Help me out. Diversionary.
Court Services Advisory Board.
Do you report to that? Are you reporting your FDAs? How many people are on OR, CB, everything like that, the same way that we used to?
Yeah.
Okay.
He does.
Yes,
And I was going to speak on his behalf to that what he's doing has been the board's request. Admittedly, it's advisory. It also wasn't the first time it's been requested for a long time. Particularly the late Bob Ravitz was constantly wishing we would pursue this path, and it always could be an issue of if you get the cart in front of the horse, it's a chicken and the egg thing. It's got to start somewhere. And so whether or not we should have come here and said, let's pass some dictate to him or take a recommendation from the advisory board and act on it formally. But he's shown initiative and adhered to those requests that had been going on for a considerable amount of time. And he immediately, I think, has put a good foot forward and demonstrated that he heard what they were asking to do, and he's fulfilling that. And it's something in particular that Judge Stoner has been really asking us to do, and it's his many experiences at national conferences, et cetera, that it does produce an economic dividend. And he's got umpteen data points that he'd be happy to show you ad nauseum. And I can't stress how much he is convicted that this ultimately continues to reduce recidivism, helps actually get the person more holistically back on their feet with the number of issues that are at play. And there are things, though, in the budget that are new, and I want to be clear about that, is the bus passes, and we've talked about it, and Jessica's identified there's potentially another fund to perhaps pay for it, but I'm also saying that's a minute part of the figure that you're talking about, and I'm not trying to suggest that it's the whole thing, but there are some aspects that I don't think were apples to apples, was my point earlier, that we can, in a little bit longer discussion, go through those points and then maybe identify other revenue streams that can pay for it. Not that any of this conversation is irrelevant when you finish the year as tight as we did last year. And so I appreciate everybody's points, but we really need to approve this contract.
I'll move approval of item 16, pending budget board action tomorrow.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I appreciate the conversation and thank you for
Yes,
coming here.
thank
and
you.
We look forward to continue to flush this out. The county clerk, you want to, Carrie, explain this? I know it's routine, but
Yes, this is just our FY 23 CFA report for you all to receive, and then we'll pass it to the state auditors for the financial reports.
Move to receive.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Stacy,
you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Item 18 is a project at the intersection of Britton and Luther Road. It was a federal STP project managed by ODOT. This is a change order. They handle the funds over there to reduce the cost of clearing and grubbing item. So it's really in the positive. They eliminated from the contract and then brought it back at a reduced price. So I'd recommend approval.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
19,
19 is a claim from Pinnacle. It's doing the land acquisition services. This is a SERB project on the south end of Luther Road in District 2. The SERB dollars are held at ODOT, so we're just approving that the work was done, and then they make the payment over there, $21,900.
That's all you, brother. That's a big project.
well, unless y'all have any questions, I'm gonna move it.
Second.
Thank you, Stacy, for your work on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 20 is an amendment to our owner's rep contract. This is the HVAC project at the existing jail. If you'll recall, those projects at the jail were originally sub-recipient agreements to the trust. We had to take them back, so they were never in the owner's rep contract in the beginning. So now we're amending his contract to oversee this work for us in the amount of $229,000. It's going to be nearly a $5 million contract.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pinnacle Consulting.
Yeah, item 21, Pinnacle Consulting on another project. This is a bridge in Arcadia in District 3. They were selected to provide the services for that bridge, land acquisition, the amount of $29,200.
Looking forward to this one. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Much needed.
And then there's a bridge in Deer Creek on 178th Street. AT&T had done some work out there and they want to be reimbursed for it, so we're gonna pass that cost on to ODOT hopefully. I don't think we should pay for it.
Yeah, this is a 324A claim. This project, this particular one, they actually came out and they potholed a fiber line to locate it. They had done approximate locations, and we wanted to be very sure, since this was a large fiber trunk, that we were going to be nowhere near it. So they actually came and sited it, and it's completely out of the way. So I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second?
application.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then I just need to strike item 23.
Move to strike.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Monroe.
Item 24 is a contract between Kone Elevator Company and the Board of County Commissioners for the repair of the jail elevator located in the courthouse. We have an encumbrance in place, and Kone is telling me that it is a 4-week delivery time for the repair pieces, parts, to put it back in shape. We've had some issues as a result of that elevator being down. You know that the sheriff's deputies use the C elevator, a passenger car, to do transport when the jail elevator is down. That puts more pressure on everybody trying to get where they need to be. So we'll try and expedite this if possible.
Just to clarify, Keith, when you say jail elevator, you mean in the courthouse,
Yes.
correct?
Jail elevator in the courthouse.
Thank you.
And this is a separate repair, separate project from the ARPA projects to fully replace all of our elevators.
That's right. It's a drive that has found to be defective. The amount of this contract is $42,813.62, which troubles me just a little bit. I would rather repair or replace rather the elevator in its entirety, but we can't do without it. We can't get the pieces and parts here, so we've no other choice.
I'll move approval.
Second.
And I will say appreciation to the sheriff who's working with us on that. If they are not in the immediate call of transporting an inmate, they are parking elevator C on the first floor. And they will take passengers unless they receive a call. And there's a posted notice from me on the wall there that if they ask the public to step off, they're expected to comply. And that has greatly relieved a lot of the pressure. And so I thank them for their cooperation.
That's good stuff.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 25 is a lease renewal between the Board of County Commissioners and Leadership Square Realty Investors for the continued occupancy of the district attorney on the 7th floor. The district attorney has asked for additional space on the 4th floor, which has been approved by a subcommittee. That lease agreement will come to you at a later date.
Yeah, Joe pointed out to me that there's no encumbrance attached.
Pending encumbrance.
Okay. I'll move approval of item 25 pending encumbrance.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sheriff?
Good morning. This is an annual report that we have to submit electronically for so we can receive our share of the federal asset or equitable sharing money from the alphabet federal agencies. The reason it's on the agenda is because in our electronic submission, there's an affidavit that we were required to click that says that there was wet signatures from our governing group. So that's why it's on there. It's the same language we put on every year.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I know
Thank you.
Christie's here, but there's a request to strike 27. She's confirmed that.
Motion to strike.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Commissioner comments, District 1.
Oh, welcome back, Joe. Where's Joe? Joe's back, everyone. Yay.
Welcome back, Joe. Mr. Foster with Blue Jay is in the group. It's going to be one of my ARPA recipients. If you're not aware of what he's doing, please ask. He's doing great things for the community, especially underage kids and those that are new to driving and their interaction with law enforcement. It's a great opportunity to reduce some of the confusion with, and the scared individuals, the scared kids, and what could be a very frightening situation for them, and inform their parents at the same time. So this is, we planned on having our second round of ARPA recipients on today, and for some reason they didn't get on, but we'll get those on hopefully for Tuesday. So, Mr. Foster, thanks for coming. If you want to come tell us all about it, please. I mean, if you guys have a second.
My name is Kurt Foster, and I'm the CEO of Blue Jay. I don't know if I should speak this way.
Either way.
I'm the CEO of Blue Jay, and part of the creative that humanizes both police officer and driver doing stuff. And we do that. Well, first of all, let me ask you a question. How many people here have been pulled over by police?
I would never admit that up here.
I'll admit it. I'll admit it.
Only once every other week.
Well, you all understand the anxiety that happens when you see people in red lights behind you. Just imagine if you have an additional illness, mental illness that goes along with that, knowing that the police officers will not know about that. So what we've done, we've taken all of those insecurities, all those fears, and we put them into an app. And so you'll upload a picture of yourself. It will ask you for your first language, your occupation, if you have any health issues, mental health issues, if you have any disabilities, or even if you're a veteran. So when you pull it over, and the police officer types in your license, that profile now humanizes who you are. At the same time, the police officer will send you a profile with their picture, name, badge number, and also, unfortunately, the reason you were pulled over. After the encounter, 24 hours after the stop, you will receive 5 questions asking about the car right now. Police officer. So now we take that information and we start to calculate all the results. We send those results back to police captains and lieutenants, so they'll know how the police officers are conducting themselves in the field. And so our goal realistically is to show that we have more good cops than bad cops because now it's citizen based. And the goal of it is to just humanize both the police officer and the driver. And we want to just create peace of mind because we know we all have individuals who are aging, who might have dementia, some might have autism, some might even have diabetes. And so speaking to dispatch, they told us that those are the 3 most common mistakes that are made in traffic. And so if a police officer simply knew that you were diabetic, you had dementia, you had autism, just that snapshot of who you are can change the dynamic of how that police stop actually takes place. Even for women, we found out that most women are fearful when they get pulled over, not knowing that it's a real police officer. So now with that profile, it will verify and validate that it's a police officer coming to your car. So, with our last phase of testing, we're going to be exemplary for about 2 months testing before we go wide with it. So when you all hear about it, sign up because it really is peace of mind for you and your family. You're the young driver who's just turned 16 and doesn't know exactly how to do what they're supposed to do. Or if it's an aging loved one, you can take care of them also just by simply humanizing them. So that's kind of the short version, but thank you for the opportunity to say about Blue Jay.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's a great one to fund. It's going to be good stuff. So
I wanted to make special mention on the passing of Reverend Reed, a definite legend in our community, and Charles in my office was just a part of helping honor him a couple of weeks ago at the Lynn Institute, and none too soon, as it turned out. So he will be missed. Any other new business? If not, is there a motion to recess into executive session?
Move to recess.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We all changed with Colton. Okay. Is there a motion to return back to regular session?
I'll move we return.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Action on item 30.
Item 30, I move we proceed as discussed.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 31.
I move we strike item 31.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens to be heard? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, everybody in?
Yes.
Call the meeting to order for the PBA. Carrie Bloomert, Brian Mon, Colton Murphy present. The notice of the meeting was properly posted on August 27th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 21?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Monroe.
Item 3 has to do with the continued use of the Lincoln Event Center for the warrant clearing event. I think it's been very successful. From what I've heard, over 400 people helped this last go round, and they're wanting to use that again for this purpose on November 8th.
I will move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 4 is a service agreement change order between the PBA and Miller Architects in the amount of $26,000. This has to do with additional structural research taking place in the basement of the ICB and also around the exterior of the perimeter. There's some concern that once the brick is removed from the exterior and inside the cement columns, there will be some racking and movement. And so that's what they want to work on to help prevent.
I'll move approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 5 is a like item in the amount of $29,000. The discussion began since there's this concern that the frame may twist or move. Originally, they did propose a steel structure to be placed on the exterior of the building.
Is ICB.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the ICB. They've since revised this to provide steel reinforcement in the interior of the building, which presents a better option for us. They'll design this, and again, the change order amounts $29,000.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 6 is a lease renewal with the district attorney's office for space located out at Northeast 23rd Street. They will begin paying rent September 1st. They'll have begun to occupy the 7,242 square feet of the warehouse out there at $7 per year. Things thus far are going well.
You said 74,000.
7,400 square feet.
Or how much?
$7 per year. Okay. That totals $4,224.50 per month.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 7 is for 2 new parking spaces.
Move approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 8 has to do with security measures for the election board and for ACOG at the Lincoln property. There had been a report from Homeland Security to evaluate the condition of the building, possible threats, how things could or could not happen. One of the proposals was to install bollards along the front entrance. That would take some time, quite a bit of money. I talked with Doug Sanderson out there to discuss the possibility of concrete barriers, much like what we put over here in Metro One parking. He thought that would be a good idea and was certainly agreeable to that. That came before the PBA advisory. There you see the concrete barriers that D1, thank you so much, Brian Jasper, for procuring for us at no cost. This is the driveway leading down to the election board, and you can see that there really is nothing stopping any kind of a vehicle from moving. I'm not wanting to give anybody any ideas, but from doing damage there if they wanted to. So the idea would be to place bollards along the curb in front of the building to prevent that kind of activity from taking
Where
place.
those cones are?
Yes, and that was at pardon me, that was at Doug Sanders' suggestion.
Okay. Not on the ACOG side, but on just county election board side?
Well, there's some disagreement there. ACOG didn't like the looks of these things, which I can understand, but you know, form follows function, and I think they're a beautiful thing given what could likely
what
happen.
purpose they provide.
Exactly.
Not gonna disrupt any ornamental plants, right?
Well, that's not the intent, but you know, I know certainly what could happen if plants were threatened.
That's an inside joke.
Mm.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval, but I do remember seeing some communication from ACOG being concerned about the appearance and access to their door.
Mhm.
Obviously, I assume that their door will still have easy access.
There will be space between the barriers for pedestrian traffic.
Okay.
I think, you know, if it were me, the only thing I would be concerned with is the barriers are uglier than bollards. You know, and perhaps at some point we can look at putting bollards in place, but these barriers are something that we can do today.
Well, in advance of November elections, I think it's important for us to make sure the election board is as safe as possible.
I
And the folks
agree.
who work in there are as safe as possible.
And ACOG as well. You know,
Yeah.
someone who's maybe unfamiliar with the property sees an open spot down the ACOG side and decides to do something like that. So I think protection of the entire front and uniformity is the best approach.
Installing speed bumps?
I'm
That
sorry?
area- Speed bumps on that long road? No?
I don't know that anybody careening down that long drive at 80 or 90 miles an hour would be concerned with speed bumps. And they really, I don't think, would do anything but protect, well, they wouldn't, I don't think protect anything really. They wouldn't do as good a job as what a
I
barrier.
think too, you're open up to liability potentially if there's damage done to the cars. There's reasons why that hasn't been done in other places, I've been told, but the ACOG side isn't a direct shot off of the drive like the election board is.
That's true.
You'd have a harder ramp up there.
That's
Because
true.
you do have barriers in the ditch for one.
I had suggested, if you could go back to the driveway photograph, please. I had suggested putting barriers. Down here, there is a median, which would require traffic that wanted to park in either the election board or ACOG's parking lot to make a right-hand turn and enter the parking lot that way. Doug Sanderson didn't like that particularly, but that would require far less of the barriers to be used. And I think might be a more attractive alternative than lining the entire front of the building with barriers.
You're saying place them out there on the drive versus on the sidewalk?
Put them,
As a
put them
curvature.
on the, put them on the drive, which would divert any traffic wanting to enter the closest parking lots. There is another access, and that could be used for both ACOG and the election board. It's hard to see and describe with just this photograph, but it would require a right-hand turn or left-hand turn, in a 90-degree turn into either one of the parking lots before you get to the building.
The engineer got any concerns with putting these heavy things on the sidewalk where there's the pillars with the facade on front? Will it create any cracking or pulling away?
I don't anticipate that.
All right,
Okay. I'll move approval.
Second.
clear. Which option are you moving? Sticking them in front like the red cones there suggest, or the orange cones?
Point out again, maybe on the back TV where I can see, point out again your second option that you suggested.
If you just leave this photograph up. But here is where you turn
Yes.
into the parking lot.
Yes.
Closest to the building. There's another entrance further
Up.
yes, more towards Lincoln Boulevard. I was suggesting putting the barricades here, which would require a turn 90 degrees
Into the parking lot.
and yet protect the building, both sides, from a vehicle moving in that direction.
Do you have fire marshal concerns with that?
That's a good
No.
question.
Well,
I actually like prefer that option myself.
I also prefer the second option. However, I have been to the election board to early vote, and sometimes they allow people who are elderly to stay in their car and drive up to the south side of the building and vote with an attendant in their car. And so if we do the second option, I would just want Doug to say, yes, we can make that work with the way we do early voting. Or
I
the
believe-
way we do voting.
I believe logistically, from a motorist's perspective, that can happen.
Okay.
But certainly Doug may have other concerns as it relates to making a turn into that parking lot and approaching there. But I think there's adequate space to do that voting from your car.
Okay. Do you like the second option?
As long as I'm just looking at the red curb right there from my fire marshal. So you just don't have any concerns that a fire engine needs to get on up there closer to the building, and logistically with the twists and turns, fire truck makes it.
I think they can still make it through that parking lot.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move approval of item 8 with the second option that Mr. Monroe proposed, which is, for the record, say it again.
Putting protective barriers that would obstruct the traffic not as close to the election board building, requiring turning into the parking lots well ahead of,
That main drive.
yes.
Okay,
And if
Thank
that doesn't work, we can adjust.
okay, thank you, sir.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
And number 9 is our District 2 Thanksgiving thing we do to thank all the people involved with Shine. So I'll move that for November 13th.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens? Any board comments or new business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.